Assalamu alaikum and hello everyone. This is Hassan Ali, and this over here is a brief demo video recording of chapter 22 from our study text by the name of Sources of Finance. For those who don't know me, I am an examiner as well as an online senior faculty in a school in London with 10 plus years of experience. So let's get on with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some questions from paper one, one question from paper two, and some live answers. We're going to look into them, and we're going to be completing this entire chapter or the bulk of this chapter within 10, 12 minutes. All right, so I hope you're ready. Sources of finance is a technical word for simply saying where you're going to get the money. So if you want to start up a business, for example, you want to open up a shop or a factory, you may not have the money and you might have to go to other people to ask for money. And you can go to your friends, you can go to your family, you can go to investors, you can go to your bank. And those are different methods of raising finance or raising money to start up a business. And if you can convince them that you're going to be a successful business, it's going to sell, you're going to make lots and lots of profit, then they're going to invest based on what benefit they can get. So bank charges interest, whereas other investors are looking for a share in your profits if you have any. All right, let's begin. So there are three main sections to this chapter. The bulk of this chapter is in section two, which is different sources of finance. That's what we're going to cover today, and hopefully within 10 minutes. What is not in this chapter? So you're going to find lots and lots of topics in the study text that are not even part of the syllabus. And these are some of them from this chapter. What do finance departments do? Capital expenditure, revenue expenditure. We do that in accounting, not over here. Debentures, factoring of debts, and risk carrying. These are not in the syllabus, so don't waste your time doing these sections or topics. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to look into all of these. You can pause the video. I'm going to go to a little bit fast for to make it short and for students who have already covered this part. So if you want to stop me, you can pause the video, look into this. And for now, we're just going to concentrate on these four, which are the main, and these are the ones that come in very regularly in the paper. So bank loan, very simple. We all know about that. You go to your bank, you ask for a loan, and they give you the loan, but they charge interest. Leasing is just like renting out an asset. So if you don't own a house or if you don't own a car, you can go to someone else who owns those assets and then ask for to use them, and they charge rent. So if you go to a rented apartment, that means the apartment is not yours. It's in someone else's name. The owner is different, but you're using it and you're paying monthly rent. And the same goes for a car. You go to a car rental company and you ask for a car, they give you a car, but they charge rent on it. So you don't own the asset, you don't have to purchase it, you don't have to pay for it up front, but you use it and you just pay rent. In technical words in business studies, we simply call it leasing. Issue of shares is from by a public or private limited company, and yeah, that's a whole other chapter. So you go and ask for the general public. You go and ask general public to give you money for your business, and that's all of that happens in a marketplace for those small investors or big investors for that matter, and that marketplace is called the stock exchange. So if you want to raise lots and lots of finance from the general public, you have to be a private or public limited company, especially if you're going to the stock exchange with the general public, because private limited does not have the permission to raise finance from the general public. They can only raise finance from friends and family. The last one is crowdfunding websites. These websites allow for art and videos art and movies to be invested in by people who don't have the money. And if you go over there, there are lots and lots of backers or donors who are interested in investing in your business, just because they feel that your particular art or project should live forever. And it's a whole story there, but in simple words, crowdfunding websites is where you go and ask the general public for donations, unlike the stock exchange where people invest in your business in order to gain profit. I hope that's clear enough. All right, moving on. So, what does the textbook actually have on all of these four? So, the textbook actually has different advantages and different disadvantages for all of these methods. Retained profit, different advantages, different disadvantages. Sale of business assets, different advantages, different disadvantages. Bank loan, leasing, issue of shares, crowdfunding website. So that's a whole list of knowledge that you have to absorb and remember. And this is just one part of one chapter. But I'll make it easy for you. Okay, let's go there and check what the textbook says. All right, so this is our study text from Karen Borrington and Peter Stimson. This is our chapter. Sources of finance. Okay. All right. So you can see the first source of finance is retained profit. And you can see a lot of points. These are disadvantages, and these should be the advantages. Sale of existing assets, advantages over here, disadvantages over here. Then, okay, moving on. Issue of shares, advantages over here, disadvantages over here, bank loan again, advantages, disadvantages. Then we have debentures over here in the textbook, which is not part of the syllabus. We have factoring of debts, which is not part of the syllabus. Okay, moving on. Microfinance, advantages, disadvantages. Okay, you may look at it in your free time. Crowdfunding, advantages, disadvantages. You can see how many points there are. Sorry, those were the advantages. These are the disadvantages for crowdfunding. You can see how many points are there for you to remember it and keep in your brain. And that's just almost impossible. I'm going to make it easy for you. Magic slide, magic points. Those are going to apply to almost all of the methods that we're going to do and the others that we're not going to do. I'm going to show you how we do it in paper one questions and paper two. So we're going to do a couple of questions from paper one. We're going to do one question from paper two at the very end. And I'm going to show you some live answers from live candidates and what they write and how examiners mark. Okay, so the key points that we need to remember for all of the methods. So the only thing that you need to remember are these three main points, and you can do all of the methods in the examination. So point number one, a large amount can be raised or not in some cases. So the business does not have to worry about a large payment upfront. For example, if you want to buy a building for your for your factory and it costs a lot of money, if you do go to the bank, you don't have to worry about a large amount because the bank can pay you a large amount. But if you go to friends and family, that's not a large amount. If you tap into your own savings, that's not a large amount. So in some cases, the same point is going to be an advantage. In some, on the others, it's going to be a disadvantage. The point being, the point would remain the same. The concept would remain the same. Okay, next point, whether it has to be paid back or not, and that may increase cash outflows or monthly cash payments. The technical word that we use in business studies is cash outflows, but it simply means cash payments on a monthly basis. So whether it has to be paid back or not. So in case of crowdfunding, where you get donations, it does not have to be paid back. So you don't have to worry about paying it back later and reducing your cash flows or keeping your cash flows in check. In case of a bank loan, you have to pay it back, which means you have to pay it later at some point or break down it into monthly payments that increases cash outflows every month. And you have to look into that and you have to manage that as well. Interest, whether interest has to be paid or not, that's a simple one. So if you're going with a bank loan, interest has to be paid. If you're going with issue of shares or crowdfunding, no interest has to be paid. So again, the points would remain the same, except that at with some methods, these same points could act as an advantage, and with the others, these same points can act as a disadvantage. Another key point to remember is I always highlight the key words or key points by making them bold and by underlining them. What you need to do right now is grab a piece of paper, write the underlined words only. The K in brackets is for knowledge. The AN in bracket is for explanation or analysis. So you get a mark for giving out a knowledge point, and then you get a mark for explaining that knowledge point, which is also called analysis. Okay, so you can pause the video and you can copy this down because these are the exact same points we're going to do with all the methods, and these are the exact same points that we're going to use in our paper questions. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so for now, we're just gonna stick to two points, and I'm gonna show you that we can do all of the questions in our past papers just by sticking to these 2 points. Okay, bank loan first. As you can see, the points did not change. Large amount, yes, does not have to worry about upfront payment. If you're buying a fleet of vehicles or if you're buying a factory building, you don't have to worry about paying a large amount because the bank does it for you. But it does charge interest. Everything in blue is an advantage. Everything in red is a disadvantage. And interest adds to business expenses, which means your profit is hit at some point. Okay, leasing is when you rent out assets, so that means you don't have to worry about a large amount because leasing companies can pay a large amount to buy those assets and then give it out to you on rent. And this way, the business does not have to worry about a large payment upfront. Just like you live in a rented apartment, it's the same example as with machinery that we use in business studies. We go to these leasing companies, we tell them this is what we want, they buy it for us, and then they give it out to us on rent. And this way they can earn a little bit of a profit over the years. Crowdfunding websites, we ask for donations from a whole lot of people on these certain websites. Large amount, yes, not worry about larger payment up front. You can see the points are the same. Interest does not have to be paid. So all these the third point is in blue, which means in this case, this is an advantage, not a disadvantage, because you don't have to pay interest to these people, and that does not increase business expenses. Okay, let's try some paper one questions. All right, explain two sources of finance DCD might use for the new vehicles. Now, if you remember bank loan, and everyone remembers interest associated with bank loans, but we're going to do that. But before that, sorry about this. This question is a live question from past papers and coming from June 2023, variant 1-1. So bank loan it is, but interest does not have, sorry, has to be paid on the amount, and that's 2 marks. How simple is that? And if you remember leasing, yes, leasing, and this way the business does not have to pay to buy assets up front because it can use it by just paying rent. And then the last part of this question requires you to pick up something from the story and put it in your answer. So I'm going to do it for you. Large parcel delivery business and 20 new vehicles. That's in the second line. I'm going to put that in. Okay, but interest has to be paid on the amount by this large parcel delivery business. Okay, large amounts without having to pay for the 20 new vehicles. Now you see how simple that is. You just use the points from my magic slide. They're just 2 points if you're in a hurry, and then you need to put them in, and then you just need to pick up something from the story, put that in your answer in a logical way. And that's 6 marks. So easy. Let's try that again. Okay, do you think issuing new shares is a better way for a limited company to finance expansion than using a bank loan? Okay. November 2021, variant 1-1. Okay, bank loan, but interest has to be paid. Now, I think I made a bit of a mistake over here because bank loan is already in the question. It cannot gain you knowledge marks, so I might correct that later. Okay, leasing again, it's not in the questions, so you can use it, and leasing becomes your knowledge point because that's not in the question stem. And you're using a method from your head, from the syllabus, that's a 1 mark. This way, the business can use assets worth large amounts without having to pay them. How simple is that? And that's 4 marks. We're not looking into the last 2 marks, which are for evaluation to save some time. Okay, again, do you think leasing is the best source of finance for a small business to use for a vehicle? Okay, March 2022, variant 1.2. March is actually in India only. Cambridge does not have a session in March except for in India. Okay, leasing can also allow a business to use assets worth large amounts without having to buy them. The word leasing or the method leasing cannot become your method or your knowledge point because it's already in the question stem. But saying that you can use it without having to buy them is your knowledge point, so it does not have to worry about the large initial payment that needs to be made. Again, from my magic slide. Okay, the business can also use a bank loan, okay, knowledge point, but interest has to be paid on the amount. Analysis. All right. Do you think crowdfunding is the best source of finance for a startup business to use? November 2024, variant 1.3. Okay, large amount of money can be raised with crowdfunding, again from my magic slide, so the business does not have to worry about a large payment up front. Okay, bank loan is maybe another method that the business may use, but interest has to be paid on the amount. So it could be an advantage, it could be a disadvantage as long as it is a valid point you're going to gain an analysis mark. That's 4 marks again out of the 6 marks. Okay, let's see some live answers. And coming back to the magic slide, now we're going to look into all three of these. Large amount has to be paid back, interest to be paid or not. Okay, so issue of shares, we're going to look into some questions, some answers that candidates use issue of shares as a method with. So it does not have to be paid back. Of course, it does not have to be paid back, and no interest is charged on issue of shares or on the amount that you raise by issuing shares. Okay, the main point over here is to understand that students really like to write a lot. And you don't have to write a lot because we're not looking for long explanations. We're just looking for key knowledge and key analysis marks. For example, bank loan is your knowledge mark, and interest will have to be paid on that bank loan is your analysis. That's 2 marks. And you give me another source, which is sale of shares, and the analysis is can gain finance without having to pay anything back. Again, the same points from my magic slide. Okay, let's look at another one. Again, writing less to gain more, selling of shares without having to repay them. Okay, issue of shares, and it's interest free. So you see how easy it is, but the students really like to write a lot, explain a lot. That's not actually required. This is all we're looking for, and this is all you need to write to gain good marks. Okay, let's look into retained profit. So from my magic slide, I took this point, reduced it. It does not have to be repaid because it's the profit saved by the business from previous years. Okay, retained profit it is, and all these candidate needed to say was does not have to pay interest on it. Okay, because it's own your own profit. And that's a good thing because that does not increase business expenses. Okay, okay, but over here, something different. I can see something different. Retained profit, okay. And then the amount will not have to be repaid. Okay, that's a valid point. But if you say bank loan again, and then you rephrase the same analysis and you use the same analysis, you won't be able to gain a mark. So for retained profit, you said does not have to be paid. Very good. But if you say the same thing about bank loan, will have to be repaid, that's not a mark because that's the same point and you're rephrasing it and using it for bank loan again. Okay, the last part of this demo session is paper 2, IGCSE questions. All right, revisiting the magic slide, large amount has to be paid back. We're going to use all three of these. You might want to write these down. Interest has to be paid, just the underlined words. And this is how I teach. I make students write down, copy down the underlined words. Then we do questions, and they're the ones who give me the answers. And after the lesson, I send in, or when the chapter is finished, I send in all of the slides for them to revise and study from. Okay. All right, so this is paper 2 questions. Paper 2 questions usually has longer stories, business stories, and you need to extract applications. So I did this work for you in this case. So you might want to remember or write this down. Sole trader business is what we're going to use. Cost plus pricing is what we're going to use. And then Kari plans to obtain new machinery, which will cost $20,000. Okay, you might want to pause the video and copy this down because we're going to be using it. Okay, so let's look at a 12 marker. Consider the advantages and disadvantages to PPE of using the following three sources of finance to obtain new machinery. Which source should PPE choose? Justify your answer. Okay, crowdfunding, bank loan, and leasing. We're not going to do recommendation to save time right now. We're just going to look into the three methods, and these, just by writing the first three paragraphs, you can easily gain 9 to 10 marks. So don't worry about the recommendation for now. Okay, so I can see bank loan, and that's the easiest one to ever remember, and because interest is charged on the bank loan. So that's what the one that I'm gonna do first. Okay, this is from November 2021, variant 22. All right, bank loan it is. Interest has to be paid on the amount. That's your knowledge point, which adds to business expenses. Wow, how simple is that? Again, everything is from my magic slide. Then I'm gonna do leasing. And leasing can allow a business to use assets worth a large amounts without having to buy them. So it does not have to worry about a large payment up front. How simple is that? Okay, crowdfunding. I'm going to use the second point. It does not have to be paid back, so it does not increase cash outflows in future. Now, if you remember the application, sole trader, cost plus pricing, and Kari wants to buy new machinery that costs $20,000. Okay, let's put that in. So it does not increase cash outflows in future for this sole trader business, which adds to business expenses, so may have to increase prices as Kari uses cost plus pricing. So it does not have to worry about a large payment up front to get the new machinery that costs $20,000. Okay, that's it for today. I hope you liked it. And yeah, good day.